Hey, it's Anissa. Imagine your own sister stealing your career, your wedding, and even your identity. Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened to me. My sister faked my resignation, paraded in my wedding dress, and stole the spotlight at my own gala. And what did I do? I crashed her event. But the worst part, it wasn't just a single act. This betrayal had been building for years. Why would a family do this to one of their own? Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted most? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below. I really want to hear your thoughts on this. And tell me, where are you watching from? Let's connect. The morning air felt unusually still as I sat at my desk, staring at the screen in disbelief. My fingers trembled as I clicked open my inbox, only to be met with the harsh reality of an email titled Resignation Letter. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Dear team, it is with a heavy heart that I must submit my resignation, Anissa. I felt my breath catch in my throat. What the hell was this? I scrolled through the message again, searching for some sort of explanation that would explain the insanity of what I was seeing. But no explanation came, just the stark, cold message. It was real. It was my resignation letter. My heart raced as I slammed my laptop shut. I was frozen for a moment, disbelief washing over me. I've worked my ass off to build my career, my reputation, and now it felt like it was all being ripped away from me in an instant. The email had been sent from my account, but I hadn't written it. It couldn't have been me. My mind spun, trying to piece it together. There had to be some mistake, right? I shot up from my desk, pacing back and forth in the small apartment. My thoughts were clouded with confusion. Who would do this to me? The thought echoed, and then it hit me, as if the universe itself had whispered it in my ear. Jolene. Of course it was her. No one else would have the audacity to destroy my career like this. The thought of her face, smug as ever, made my blood boil. I needed to confront her. Now. I didn't hesitate as I grabbed my coat and rushed out the door. The streets outside were bustling with morning commuters, but I barely noticed. My mind was consumed with rage, betrayal, and disbelief. How could she do this to me? After everything, after all we'd been through. She was my sister. I trusted her. I arrived at her apartment in less than 15 minutes, but when I rang the doorbell, I was greeted with silence. I knocked harder. Still nothing. The door finally creaked open, and there she was. Jolene, with that same infuriating calmness she always had, standing there with a look of feigned surprise. "Anissa, what's wrong?" she asked, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You look upset." I could feel my chest tighten, and before I even knew it, the words escaped me. "You sent the resignation email. Why, Jolene? Why would you do that?" Her eyes narrowed, but there was no hint of guilt. "It was just a misunderstanding, Anissa. Honestly, you're overreacting." I stood there, my chest heaving, utterly speechless. "A misunderstanding?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Do you realize what you've done? You've destroyed my career. You've taken everything I've worked for." She shrugged nonchalantly. "It wasn't personal. It's just business, you know? You should have known better than to trust me with your email account." I could feel the anger rising inside me, a fire that I couldn't extinguish. "You've crossed a line, Jolene. This is beyond personal now. I'm going to expose you. I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done." For the first time, her calm demeanor cracked, and a flicker of annoyance flashed in her eyes. "Go ahead," she said with a chilling calmness. "But I don't think anyone will believe you. You're just a disgruntled ex-employee. No one will take you seriously." I wanted to slap her, but I couldn't move. The pain, the betrayal, it was suffocating. "You're sick," I managed to choke out. I stormed out of her apartment, my hands shaking with rage. But deep down, I knew there was something even worse waiting for me. I returned to my apartment, determined to prove this wasn't a mistake. As I rifled through my papers, I found it. A doctor's note, forged. But it looked so real. It was signed, dated, everything in place to back up the resignation. I held it in my hand, my fingers trembling as I absorbed the depth of this deception. It wasn't just my career. She'd played me like a fool, and I could see that this wasn't just some petty act of revenge. Jolene had a plan, a sick, twisted plan. I sank to the floor, Overwhelmed by the weight of it all, anger, frustration, and a deep sense of loss settled into my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to expose her to the world. But deep down, I knew there was no simple fix to this. As I sat there, the phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Jolene. "This is just the beginning, Anissa. You won't even know what's coming next." My stomach sank. What had I just gotten myself into? I couldn't stop thinking about the email. The betrayal had burned itself into my mind like a permanent scar. But as I stood in front of the family photo album a few days later, something else hit me with even more force. I had come across the family photos while searching for something else entirely. But when I turned the page, there it was. The photo of me as a child, gone. In its place, a photo of Jolene and me, two girls standing side by side in front of our childhood home. But the angle was off, the lighting strange. I stared at it for a moment, unable to place exactly what was wrong, before it hit me. The original photo, the one of me alone, had disappeared. The one that represented my childhood, my relationship with my family, was now replaced with something different. My heart pounded in my chest. A cold knot settled in my stomach. This wasn't just about the resignation letter anymore. Jolene had gone further. She had erased me from the history of our family. I grabbed the album and stormed into the living room where my parents were lounging, watching TV like everything was normal. "Mom! Dad!" I snapped, my voice shaking. "What the hell is this?" I tossed the photo album onto the coffee table, the photo glaring back at them. Both of them looked at the photo, and then at me, as though nothing had changed. "It's just a mistake, Anissa," my mother said, her voice soft, her eyes a little tired. "It must have been misplaced. No need to get so worked up." "No, Mom," I said, my voice rising. "This is not a mistake. This is deliberate. Why would you let Jolene replace my photo like this?" My father gave me a long, exasperated look, as though he was tired of dealing with my outbursts. "Anissa, calm down. It's not worth fighting over. It's just a photo. We'll fix it." But I couldn't calm down. My chest felt tight, and every word that came out of their mouths only pushed me further away. How could they be so blind? How could they be so indifferent to the fact that I was being erased from the very fabric of our family? I turned away, feeling the weight of it all settle over me like a cloud. I had always trusted them, my parents, my family, but now I was questioning everything. How had I missed this? How had Jolene's manipulation gone unnoticed for so long? I needed to get away from them, away from that suffocating atmosphere. I went to my room and slammed the door behind me, the quiet silence only amplifying my anger. I wasn't going to let them sweep this under the rug. I was done pretending like everything was fine. I sat on my bed, staring at the floor, my thoughts racing. Was this all a part of some bigger plan? Had my family always been so complicit in Jolene's actions? I didn't know who to trust anymore. But then, something caught my eye. A small journal, half hidden under a stack of old papers. I picked it up, recognizing the faded leather cover immediately. It was my mother's. I opened it, my hands trembling as I scanned the pages. It wasn't long before I found what I was looking for. In her neat handwriting, my mother had written about Jolene. About how, over the years, she had grown more suspicious of her. How she felt that Jolene's actions weren't just about me, but about something deeper, something darker. My breath caught in my throat as I read a section aloud to myself. The will. Anissa will inherit. But I can't trust Jolene. I need to take action. I stopped reading, the words ringing in my ears. My mother had known. She had known all along that something wasn't right. She had even planned to remove Jolene from the inheritance. My mother had been protecting me. But at what cost? The realization hit me like a wave. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. My mother had been suspicious of Jolene, and now I was left picking up the pieces of a shattered trust. The weight of it all was unbearable. I felt the tears sting my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This was no time for weakness. I needed answers. I had to confront Jolene. I had to understand why she was doing this to me, and to our family. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, my hands shaking as I waited for the call to connect. She picked up on the third ring. What do you want, Anissa? Jolene's voice came through the line, flat and cold, as if she already knew what I was going to say. You've crossed the line this time, I said, my voice low but steady. I know everything. The photo, the journal. You can't hide from this anymore. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost feel her smirking, even through the phone. Good luck, Anissa, she finally said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. But you'll find that nothing is as it seems. You're too late to change anything. I hung up, the anger bubbling up inside me. But it wasn't just anger anymore. It was a feeling of determination, of resolve. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I took a deep breath, looking at the journal in my hand. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter what it took. I never expected to hear about the new company that Jolene and Casey had started, especially not from one of my former colleagues. But there it was, in the middle of a casual conversation over lunch. A throwaway comment about how exciting the new business was. My mind immediately stopped processing everything else as the words hit me like a ton of bricks. They're doing so well, you know? I heard Jolene and Casey are doing a lot with that new company of theirs. Your business ideas, right? The colleague said it like it was just a fact, like it was common knowledge. But for me, it was a betrayal in plain sight. My stomach dropped. I barely made it through the rest of the conversation. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Jolene? Casey? My business ideas? The ideas I had worked tirelessly on, thinking I was building something that would matter? All stolen without a word to me? I knew I had to confront them. I didn't care that they might deny it, that they'd try to brush me off. This wasn't just about a new company. It was about my career, my hard work, and my family's betrayal. The confrontation happened that same afternoon. I walked into Casey's office, my heart hammering in my chest, trying to keep my voice steady. So the new company, huh? I asked, my voice tight with barely contained anger. Casey looked up from his desk, a bit startled, but quickly covering it up with a practiced smile. What about it? You know what about it, I shot back. You and Jolene, taking my business ideas and starting your own company, without even telling me. Casey leaned back in his chair, his arms crossing over his chest. Anissa, you're overreacting. It's just business. Just business? My voice cracked with frustration. That's not just business, Casey. That's stealing. You've taken everything I worked for. He shrugged, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, but it was cold, distant. You should have been quicker. We're just doing what we thought would work. You've been distracted by whatever you've been going through with your personal life. We're just making the most of an opportunity. I couldn't believe the audacity. He dismissed me like I was a fool. Before I could respond, Jolene walked into the room, a smirk playing on her lips, her presence somehow more infuriating than I had ever realized. What's the problem now, Anissa? She asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Don't play dumb with me, I snapped. You and Casey have been using my ideas to start your own company. I'm not an idiot. I've worked too hard for this to let you steal it from me. Jolene's smile didn't falter. You really should have protected yourself better, but you can't blame us for taking an opportunity you didn't even see. My heart was pounding, my chest tight with fury. I wanted to scream, to hit something, but instead, I simply turned on my heel and stormed out of the room. As I paced in the hallway, struggling to keep my emotions in check, I realized I needed proof. I couldn't just confront them without evidence. I needed something that would make it impossible for them to deny the truth. That's when Ephraim came to me. He was a close friend, someone I trusted deeply. He pulled me aside and handed me a small device, an audio recording. I didn't want to get involved, but you need to hear this, he said quietly. I pressed play, and Casey's voice filled the air, calm and cold. We've got to move quickly. Anissa's too distracted. We take her ideas, launch the company, and she won't even know what hit her. My heart sank as Jolene's voice followed, the same smug tone she always used. She'll never see it coming. She'll be too focused on her family drama. It's the perfect time to strike. The recording was a gut punch. Not only had they stolen my ideas, but they had planned this all along, carefully and methodically. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had plotted to ruin my career. The shock hit me harder than I expected. I felt a combination of rage and deep sorrow. My worst fears were confirmed. My own sister and ex-fiancé had been conspiring against me, and now I had the proof. But more than that, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming what was mine. I sat down on the floor, my mind spinning. I couldn't let them get away with this. I had a choice now, to roll over and let them take everything from me, or to fight back. I wasn't about to roll over. Holding the recorder in my hands, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning." The battle wasn't over, and I was ready to fight. I couldn't believe it when the phone rang. It was one of my guests, someone I had invited to my wedding, and they sounded confused. "Anissa," she said, her voice uncertain, "did you mean to send an invitation with Jolene's name on it?" I blinked, completely dumbfounded. What? No, that couldn't be right. I pulled my wedding invitations from the drawer and began flipping through them. Each one had Jolene's name, not mine. It felt like the ground beneath me had just crumbled away. My sister had done this. She had taken my moment, my wedding, and made it her own. My fingers trembled as I dialed my mom's number. "Mom, did you send the invitations out with Jolene's name instead of mine?" There was a long pause. "Oh, honey, it's just a mistake," my mother said casually. "We must have misprinted them. Don't make a big deal out of it." I felt the heat rising in my chest. A mistake? My wedding invitations were supposed to be an expression of who I was, a milestone in my life. And now this? It wasn't just a mistake. It was a theft of my identity, my control, my day. My family was treating it like it was nothing. I didn't say another word. I hung up and went straight to the family photo album. There it was, the photo of my wedding day, the one I had always cherished, my first dance, my joy. But when I flipped open the album, I froze. The photo was gone. In its place was a picture of Jolene, taken without my knowledge, framed and displayed as if it was a memory of my wedding day. A wave of dizziness hit me. My own wedding day, my own family photo album, had been violated. All the memories I had held onto so tightly, now stolen from me. I was losing my place in my own history. I felt empty, lost. I turned to the wall and let the tears come. Angry tears, tears of frustration. This wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't an accident, it was calculated. They were erasing me. I confronted my parents, but they just shrugged it off. "It's no big deal, Anissa," my father said, his voice dismissive. "It was just a photo swap. Calm down." "Calm down?" I nearly shouted, but the words caught in my throat. How could they be so nonchalant? How could they not understand the depths of this betrayal? But I had no choice but to walk away. There was no reasoning with them. Not when they were so blind to what was happening, or worse, when they were complicit in it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The invitation, the photo, the dismissive attitudes. Everything about my wedding felt like it had been stolen by Jolene. She had always been the golden child, the one with all the attention, the one who could do no wrong. But this was something else entirely. She wasn't just taking things from me. She was erasing me from my own life, my own family. By morning, my decision had been made. I couldn't just let this go. I was tired of standing by while my life was torn apart by the people I should have been able to trust the most. I walked into the kitchen where my parents were having breakfast. Jolene was there, of course, sitting at the table, acting like everything was normal. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook. "This ends now," I said, my voice steady but fierce. Jolene looked up, her expression unreadable. "What are you talking about, Anissa?" "I'm done letting you steal everything from me," I said, my eyes locked on hers. "I won't let you get away with this. Not anymore." The silence stretched between us, thick with tension. My heart raced, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. Jolene smirked, as if she didn't believe I had it in me to fight back. But I had had enough. "You won't get away with this," I said quietly, my voice colder than I felt. "This is just the beginning." I had known my father for most of my life, or at least I thought I did. But when I heard him speak those words, I realized how little I truly understood about the man who had always been my rock. "Jolene's the future of the business," he said, his voice loud and confident. She's the one who can take it to the next level. Anissa, well, we all know she's never quite had the drive. It was like a slap to the face. My father, the man who had always been proud of my accomplishments, had just publicly dismissed me. He was handing my place in the family business over to Jolene like I had never existed. The sting of his words cut through me deeper than anything else that had happened. I tried to hold it together as the words echoed in my mind. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. How could he do this to me? How could he so easily cast me aside for her? I had worked my entire life to prove myself worthy, and now it was as if none of it mattered. I was nothing but a shadow in my father's eyes. Later, in a desperate attempt to make sense of it all, I confronted him in his office. The anger boiled inside me, threatening to explode. "What is this, Dad?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. "You're just going to throw me aside and hand everything over to her?" He looked up from his papers, unfazed, and met my gaze. "Anissa, don't take this personally. It's just business. You've always had other things you were focused on. Jolene has the vision we need." I couldn't believe it. My father, who had been my mentor, my guide, now saw me as nothing more than a distraction. "I've always had the business in my blood, Dad. But you've never really believed in me, have you? You've always thought she was the better choice, haven't you?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me with that cold, distant gaze. The man who had once told me I could achieve anything was now telling me that I wasn't enough. I walked out of his office, my heart sinking with each step. But there was no time to cry. There was something else I needed to know. Something that had been gnawing at me ever since I discovered the depths of Jolene's betrayal. I had to get to the truth. I found myself in the attic, the place where my father kept all his old letters, journals, and records. It was a room I had been in many times before, but today it felt different. Today I wasn't searching for old memories. I was looking for something else. I stumbled across an old, dust-covered box. Inside, I found a journal. It was my father's handwriting. I flipped through it, and as I read, my world shattered. There it was, written plainly in black ink. Jolene wasn't my sister. She was his daughter from an affair, a secret child he had kept hidden from everyone, especially from me. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Jolene wasn't just the favored child. She was the product of a betrayal my father had kept hidden for years. He had never been entirely honest with me, and now I saw why he had always treated me differently. He had never seen me as his real child. I couldn't breathe. The journal fell from my hands and landed with a soft thud on the floor. My father, the man who had raised me, was the one who had betrayed me the most. I wasn't just fighting my sister. I was fighting against my own family's lies. I stormed down to the living room where my father and Jolene were sitting, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. The anger that had been building inside me finally erupted. "You lied to me!" I shouted, my voice thick with emotion. "You've always lied to me!" Jolene looked at me, her face a mix of confusion and amusement. "What are you talking about, Anissa?" My father, however, seemed more composed, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the guilt in his eyes. "Anissa, please," he said, his voice low. "This is not the time." "No," I interrupted, cutting him off. "You've kept me in the dark my entire life. You've played favorites with Jolene, and now I find out she's not even your real daughter? You've been hiding this from me, from all of us." The room went silent. Jolene's smirk faded and my father's face grew pale. I could see the regret in his eyes, but it didn't matter anymore. He had broken me. He had broken us. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "You've made your choice," I said, my voice shaking but strong. "But I'm done. I'm done being invisible. I'm done letting you control everything. I'm going to fight for what's mine." I turned to leave, but before I did, I looked back at my father. "You won't get away with this, Dad. You won't get away with any of it." I knew that my life was about to change. The pain, the betrayal, it all fueled something inside me, something that had been buried for too long. I was going to take back what was mine, no matter what it took. I had been looking forward to the gala for months. It was supposed to be my moment to honor my mother, to stand before everyone and deliver the speech she had written for me. It was a moment I had imagined for years, ever since she first spoke the words that would one day be mine. But when the night arrived, everything I had hoped for was ripped away from me. As I entered the grand hall, I noticed the atmosphere felt off. The guests were all gathered, murmuring, waiting for the program to start. But something was wrong. There was a tension in the air, something I couldn't quite place. And then I saw her, Jolene, standing confidently at the podium, ready to speak. I froze. She was holding the very speech that had been written for me. I couldn't breathe. The words my mother had crafted, the words that had meant so much to me, were now in my sister's hands. Jolene, the one who had taken everything from me, had the nerve to stand there and speak them as if they were hers. As if my mother's legacy meant nothing more than a tool to be used for her gain. I felt the blood rush to my head. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. My mother's words, the very essence of her love and wisdom, were being hijacked, and I was powerless to stop it. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a painful reminder of the injustice I was witnessing. I could barely hear the words Jolene was saying. It wasn't because the speech was bad, but because it wasn't hers. She was using my mother's voice, and that betrayal hit me harder than anything else. I stood frozen in the back of the room, watching as she spoke with an air of arrogance. She was stealing not just my mother's words, but her spirit. I couldn't stay there any longer. I turned to leave, but before I could make it out, Ephraim caught up with me. His face was pale, his eyes wide. He didn't need to say a word. I could see the anger and disbelief in his eyes. "Anissa," he said, grabbing my arm gently. I need to tell you something." "What is it?" I managed to choke out. "You need to watch the video," he said, leading me to the back room. It's worse than you think." The video was playing on the screen. Jolene, at the podium, speaking the words my mother had written. But this time, I noticed something. The voice. There was something off about it. It wasn't exactly like my mother's, but it was close. Too close. "Ephraim, what is this?" I whispered. "Listen carefully," he said. It took me a moment to register what I was hearing. The voice wasn't my mother's. It was an imitation, a perfect imitation. Jolene had used AI technology to replicate my mother's voice, making it sound as though she was still here, still alive, still speaking those words. The rage I felt coursed through me like a tidal wave. My hands trembled as I watched the screen. Each word my mother had ever said turned into a mere digital construct. Jolene had stolen her voice. She had stolen my mother's essence, using technology to manipulate the past and turn it into a weapon. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she desecrate my mother's memory like this? This wasn't just a betrayal of me, of my family. It was a violation of everything my mother had stood for. "I'll never forgive her for this," I muttered, my voice trembling with fury. Ephraim didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The damage was done, and it was clear that Jolene had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I stood there, my heart heavy with grief and anger. I couldn't let this stand. I couldn't let her win. My mother's words, my mother's voice, they were mine, and Jolene had no right to take them from me. "I'm done," I whispered to myself. "I'm done being passive. I'm taking back what's mine." As I made my way back into the crowd, I could feel Jolene's eyes on me. She knew. She knew what I had just discovered, and I knew what I had to do. The time for playing nice was over. It was time for me to take a stand. I locked eyes with Jolene across the room, and for the first time, I saw her for what she truly was. A manipulator, a thief, a woman who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. The anger that had been simmering inside me for so long finally boiled over. "This ends now," I whispered under my breath. I wasn't going to let her steal from me anymore. My mother's legacy was mine, and I was going to take it back. The gala was meant to be my moment. My time to step into the light and finally reclaim what I had lost. My business, my identity, my legacy. But as I walked into the spotlight, I felt it shift. I moved forward, eager to finally stand in front of the crowd and make my mark. But the moment my feet touched the stage, I felt something strange. The spotlight wasn't on me, it was on Jolene. I froze, confused. I tried to move, step forward, to claim the space that was mine. But with every step, the light followed her. Every time I moved, it dimmed around me and shone brighter on her. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. But soon, I realized it wasn't a mistake. Jolene had manipulated the lighting. It wasn't just bad luck. It was deliberate. She was trying to overshadow me, make me invisible in my own moment. My heart raced. I tried again. I walked across the stage, my eyes fixed on the spotlight that kept moving with me, following me as if it was rejecting my every step. Every time I tried to claim my place, it moved. Every time I reached for the light, it shifted, pushing me back into the shadows. I felt small, humiliated. My breath quickened as I felt the weight of the crowd's gaze. No one knew what was happening. No one knew the manipulations Jolene had pulled to ensure she would shine. The anger in me boiled over, but I had no control over the situation. I wasn't just invisible to the audience, I was invisible to myself. My moment was stolen. My voice, my presence, my entire being, eclipsed by the one person I'd never thought would betray me in this way. I clenched my fists at my sides, my body shaking with the humiliation. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't breathe through the suffocating frustration. How dare she do this to me? How dare she take even this away from me? As I stood there, my mind racing, I felt Ephraim's hand on my arm. I hadn't seen him approach, but he was there, standing beside me, watching me struggle in the shadows. His face was serious, his brows furrowed. "Anissa," he said, his voice low, "there's something I need to show you." I followed him to the back room, my thoughts a whirlwind. What was happening? Why couldn't I break free from this invisible barrier? Once in the back, Ephraim pulled up a screen. "Look at this," he said. I watched, confused, as the lighting diagram for the gala appeared on the screen. And there it was. The plan. Jolene had altered the lights. She'd made sure that wherever I stood, the spotlight would follow her, and I would remain in the dark. My blood ran cold. Ephraim's voice was steady as he explained the technical details. She knew. She knew this whole time. She set it up so you'd be invisible. The shock hit me like a physical blow. My sister had manipulated the lighting just to steal my moment. It wasn't just the spotlight. It was everything. She had orchestrated this, every detail, just to ensure I would never get the recognition I deserved. "You should have seen this coming," Ephraim continued, his voice growing more urgent. "This was never just about the speech. This is about control, power. She's been doing this to you for years." I felt my chest tighten. My body stiffened with a surge of anger. I was no longer the victim. I couldn't be. Not after everything she had stolen from me, not after seeing this, knowing how far she had gone to control everything. With the knowledge of what Jolene had done, I knew what I had to do. I turned back to the event, my heart racing. My eyes locked on Jolene, standing confidently in the light. The spotlight still followed her, as if she owned it, as if she owned everything. I walked back into the room, my eyes never leaving her. This time, I wasn't going to let her have the last word. In front of the crowd, I stepped forward, pushing through the crowd of guests, my voice steady but loud enough to reach every corner of the room. "Everyone!" I called out, my voice cutting through the noise of the gala. "The spotlight was never meant for you, Jolene. It was meant for me." The room fell silent. Jolene turned to face me, her smile faltering. The crowd's attention shifted to her, and for the first time, I felt like I had some control. I took a deep breath, looking at the sea of faces staring at us. "I've had enough. I'm done being invisible. I'm done letting you steal from me." I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the end of her manipulations. The game was over. The gala was in full swing, the buzz of conversation filling the air. I had just managed to steady my nerves after the confrontation with Jolene, but the atmosphere was about to shift once again. The screen at the front of the room flickered, and a video began to play. At first, I didn't recognize it. Then, I heard the voice. My heart sank. It was Jolene's voice, unmistakable, mocking our mother. I stood frozen as I watched the image of my sister appear on the screen. The camera zoomed in on her face, her eyes glinting with malice. And then I heard the words, She's nothing but a defective copy of me, Jolene said, her tone dripping with venom. She never could live up to what I am. Everyone loves her because they have to, but she's weak, just like our mother. The crowd gasped, their collective breath drawn in as the realization hit them. The words echoed through the hall, louder than anything I had ever imagined. My sister, the woman who had spent years trying to manipulate everyone, had just exposed herself to the world. Her contempt for our mother, her jealousy, it was all there, raw and unfiltered. I felt a sick twist in my stomach. A mixture of vindication and disgust flooded over me. For years I had wondered why Jolene had done the things she had. But now it was clear. Her motives were rooted in deep-seated hatred and jealousy, not just toward me, but toward our mother. As I watched her face flicker on the screen, my mind raced. How had it come to this? How had my family, once so close, become this twisted shell of what it should have been? And the worst part was, no one had known. No one had seen her for what she truly was. Until now. The room was silent. All eyes were on Jolene, who stood frozen in the middle of the floor, her face ashen. She tried to maintain composure, but it was too late. The mask she had carefully constructed over the years had shattered. The truth was out, and there was no going back. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The years of hurt, of confusion, of betrayal, they were all coming to a head. And for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of justice, of rightness. Jolene had gotten away with so much for so long, but now the truth was hers to carry. The video continued, looping back to the same cruel words over and over again. The guests looked between each other, unsure of what to do, but the tension in the air was palpable. Jolene's calm, controlled demeanor was crumbling. She couldn't stop it. Then something strange happened. The video started to glitch. The words kept repeating, looping in a disjointed mess. Jolene's face filled the screen again and again, mocking our mother, ridiculing me, until the words were stuck in an endless loop. The room became even more uncomfortable. The glitch made it worse. The awkwardness, the horror of hearing those cruel words again and again. Jolene's composure cracked. I could see the sweat on her brow, the tightening of her jaw as she fought to regain control. But there was no escaping it now. The video kept playing, the damage already done. Jolene was trapped in her own lies, her own cruelty. She couldn't stop the truth from spilling out for everyone to see. I stood tall in the midst of it all, watching the chaos unfold. The truth had finally found its way into the open, and I was no longer the victim. I had the power now. The truth was mine to wield, and for the first time, I felt my confidence solidify. As the video looped one more time, I turned to face the room, my eyes meeting Jolene's. I wasn't afraid anymore. The time for hiding in the shadows was over. When the video finally stopped, I stepped forward, my voice clear and commanding. "This is just the beginning of exposing the truth about Jolene and our family," I said, my words cutting through the stunned silence. Jolene stood frozen, her face pale. She knew there was no way out. The truth had come, and there was no escaping it now. "You can't hide from the truth anymore, Jolene," I said, my voice unwavering. The words hung in the air like a promise. The crowd was silent, the tension thick as they waited for what would happen next. Jolene's eyes flickered with panic. For the first time, I saw her truly afraid. The room felt colder than it should. Jolene was sitting across from me, her eyes empty, her usual arrogance replaced by something unrecognizable. Vulnerability, maybe. The calm before the storm had arrived, and I could feel the weight of everything that had built up between us. I took a breath. I had waited for this moment for so long, and now that it was here, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. But I was. I had to be. "You've done enough, Jolene," I started, my voice steady despite the anger brewing inside me. "The resignation letter, the stolen wedding, the way you manipulated Mom's memory, everything. You've ruined my life for years, and I've had enough." Her eyes flickered, and I could almost see the guilt flash through her, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't let her. "I know what you did. I know how deep your jealousy went, but you've gone too far now." My words felt like daggers and I didn't stop. I'll never let you hurt me again. I'm done with this. Jolene's face fell. She opened her mouth, trying to defend herself one last time, but there was nothing left to say. I could see it in her eyes. Her manipulation was finished. I stood up, my hands trembling only slightly, and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. As I reached the door, I heard a soft knock. I stopped, turning slowly. Jolene stood there, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, I saw her as a person, not a manipulator. She looked fragile, broken even. "I'm sorry, Anissa," she whispered, her voice cracking. I never meant for any of this." I stared at her for a moment. Part of me wanted to reach out. I wanted to forgive her, to believe her, to fix this. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed for so long, knew better. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said quietly, my voice hoarse from the emotions I had held in for so long. The words hung heavy in the air between us. "I don't know if you're even worth forgiving." Jolene's face crumpled at my words, and she turned away without a word, her footsteps fading down the hall. I stayed in the doorway for a moment, watching her go, feeling an unfamiliar emptiness. But I wasn't done. Somewhere, deep inside me, I knew this wasn't the end. Maybe it was for Jolene, but not for me. My life had been hijacked by her for far too long, and now, finally, I had the chance to take it back. Days passed, and things slowly started to change. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast, but I was moving forward, one small step at a time. My career was starting to pick up again, the pieces of my life falling back into place, even if the cracks were still visible. I sat in a quiet cafe one afternoon, a coffee cup in hand, staring at a photo of my family. My old family, the one I had known before all the lies. I didn't feel the ache of betrayal anymore. It was still there, somewhere deep inside me, but it was quieter now. I was stronger. A ping from my phone brought me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Ephraim. "Congratulations, Anissa. You've got the job offer." A smile tugged at my lips. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. I had let go of the past, not without pain, but with a quiet resolve. As I walked out of the cafe and into the street, I knew I was heading in the right direction. The betrayal, the lies, they no longer held power over me. I was moving forward, not because I had to, but because I finally chose to. The road ahead wasn't clear, but it was mine to walk. In life, we all face moments when the weight of betrayal and hardship seems unbearable. But I've learned that the true strength lies in how we choose to rise from those moments. It's not about erasing the past or forgetting the pain. It's about taking control of our own narrative. We each have the power to redefine our story, no matter how others may try to dictate it. If you're facing your own struggles, remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. So, how do you plan to reclaim your power? What steps can you take today to move beyond what holds you back? If this story resonates with you, if it touches your heart, leave a comment with the number 1" or let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. And if this video wasn't for you, tell me why and where you're tuning in from. If you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more stories to inspire and motivate you. Let's keep the conversation going. Your story matters, and we're in this together.